We know if we can just focus in on breast cancer, we know that there's at least 10 or 12 distinct kinds of breast cancer. And presumably, each of these 10 or 12 comes from a slightly different stem cell that exists inside the normal breast. We don't really know much about the identities of these subtly distinguished or subtly differing stem cells in the breast, but it's already clear that the biological attributes of the normal cells in the breast are strongly imprinted on the breast cancer cells. And therefore, to the extent that we have 10 or 12 different kinds of breast cancers, and to the extent that over the next years one will be able to identify 10 or 12 subtly different kinds of breast cancer stem cells, those breast cancer stem cells are likely to be very strongly reflective of the properties of the normal stem cells that reside in the normal breast. Beyond that, at present, we're really hard-pressed to answer your question.
Mike?
Actually, there's some recent data that I think might shed some light, and this is on why certain types of cancers are more frequent than others. And this is speculation, but I think it's a good hypothesis. So when we first found breast cancer stem cells 5 years ago, the only stem cell system that really had been described well was the blood, where I told you 1 in 20,000 cells is a stem cell. But recently, Hans Clevers in the Netherlands, in some very elegant experiments, has identified the normal intestinal stem cell. And it turns out that 1 in 20 intestinal cells have the ability to self-renew, whereas 1 in 20,000 blood cells has the ability to self-renew. And then if you look at the frequency of the tumors in the two different systems, the blood versus the colon, where colon cancer is, if you take, is one of the most, I think the second most common cancer in the US. So very frequent tumor, and relatively, although there's still a minority population, but a relatively frequent self-renewing stem cell or self-maintaining cell than in the blood system, whereas AML is a relatively unusual disease.
Acute leukemia.
Yeah, acute leukemia is a relatively uncommon disease. So one speculation would be if a tissue or organ has more frequent stem cells, then the odds of you getting cancer in that tissue goes up. Again, that's all speculation at this point. It's not been proven.
Bob Weinberg has the last word.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. The fact is, it's very difficult to really answer your question directly, because colon cancer is almost entirely a dietary disease, whereas breast cancer has many other factors. And it's clear that there's certain parts of the world where individuals are genetically very similar to us, and yet the rate of colon cancer is 1/10 what it is in this country. And therefore, it's very difficult to say that the colon is inherently sensitive or insensitive to becoming cancerous, because we know that it depends on the kind of food you put in your gut, whether or not you're going to get the disease.
Right.
And
it's a hope, and then I'll make my closing comment.
I think just one short comment, which is that it may be indeed that as we're looking at these lifestyle and external factors, that they have the ability to play a much greater role in some organs than others. So, for example, lifestyle factors clearly play a big role on developing cancer of the breast, colon, as you talked about. But for other organs like pancreas, for example, we haven't really identified lifestyle factors that play a role there, and that may be one of the key factors that determines the difference in frequency.
Or we haven't found one yet.
Yeah, there may be, but it's not a frequent lifestyle factor.
Yeah. There's a theme to take away from this, which is that because of increasing sophistication of understanding biology, can actually lead to sometimes simple solutions in terms of what we can do. We talked about lifestyle, we talked about diet, and so simultaneously what we're trying to do as a community is understand the really fundamental basis of cancer. We talked about genes, we talked about molecules, we talked about the relationship of cells to each other, we talked about stem cell concept, a particular kind of cell that may underlie a lot of these problems. But we're also talking about things like diet and exercise and sunlight and eating healthy food, and they're going on sort of simultaneously. And I think this has been one of the more exciting things that's happened really over the last 10 years. And we're asking more sophisticated questions, such as the kind of questions that we're getting from you. This is why we get cancer in some organs, not in others. What do we know about the origins of cancer, and what can we do about it? So this is a snapshot of kind of where we are right now at this particular moment in history, and it's in a very exciting moment in history. It's evolved rapidly, and it's going to continue to evolve rapidly because of your wonderful support, the support of this organization, and the incredible energy and insight and intelligence of the grant recipients whose research you're helping to make possible.